Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live broadcast. It is Christmas Eve, the 24th of December, 2024. It's Wednesday, and it's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Wednesday's Christmas. Today's Tuesday, the 24th of December, 2024. These videos are all live and unscripted, just in case you're wondering, unless it was obvious. Thanks you guys so much for hanging out with us today. We've got another build, or at least a motherboard prep, the beginning of the build, waiting with an Intel Ultra 7, a 5th gen T700 Crucial NVMe, some RGB RAM, storage, and the star of the show, the Asrock LiveMixer, which has 23 USB ports and Thunderbolt. I mean, this thing is loaded with I/O, Wi-Fi 7. This is your everything PC. It doesn't matter what you want to do with it. Can I do blank with this computer? Yes. Fill it in with whatever you want. If this computer won't do it, well, you either need a supercomputer, if such a thing exists anymore, or perhaps you're not asking for a computer, but something else. But if a computer can do it, if it's gaming, if it's content creation, if it's productivity, if it's just about performance and chasing benchmarks, yes, 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 and yes, and no, it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money, maybe a little bit more than say a budget PC, but not really that much more when you think about how much more you're getting in return. After you spend so much money, you get to a point of diminishing returns. Well, this is right up at the top without those diminishing returns necessarily, with room to grow. All right, so with that, let me say hello to everybody joining us, and thank you. Earlier before the show, we had a kind contribution from Frank Jimmy with an Amazon gift card. Thank you, Frank, for sending that Amazon gift card. We appreciate you very much. Also, I wanted to thank our friend, I just see him in there now, Buster, Peter Laycock, with a 10-pound super chat, joining us from Scotland, where he says, good evening, Carey, Marlena, and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature right now in Edinburgh, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or 12.7 degrees Celsius. We've been trying to set up Studio C for a while. Oh, by the way, thank you, Buster. Sorry. We've been trying to set up Studio C for a while. I did a little bit more work last night, and it's a lot more involved than you might think. But just to see if this is going to work, if I go to this camera here, can we get a close-up on this? Yes. Okay, so that's a slight improvement. We're getting there. And I'll jump back over to camera 1 here, so we can go to that here in a minute. And then finally, well, 2 things before we start the show. A bit of sad news. Someone I considered a friend and a peer, someone who I admired, who made the kind of video content that I wish I could have made. Gordon Mah Ung from PC World Magazine, previously Maximum PC Magazine. He has lost his battle to cancer on the 21st of this month. He was 58 years old, and he is going to be sorely missed in an industry of so much conjecture. Gordon was always telling it straight like it is, and how he got away with that in corporate America without losing his job was a talent in and of itself. He would go on rants that was just hilarious because he was 100% correct about, I don't know, I think the search for find for Microsoft Outlook was Control-L or something. And he went off on this hilarious rant that's like, why would find be Control-L? F-I-N-D. There's no L there. Maybe Control-F or Control-I or Control here. He's like, what are you thinking? And he just, ripped Microsoft a new one, and he did it in a funny way, but he was also like really worked up about it, which was hilarious. And he wasn't shy about saying his unpopular opinions with regards to the internet community, the ones that watch a lot of YouTube, and they're pretty much enthusiasts that are going to fire back and challenge his point of view. And he's just like, well, then I guess you're going to hate me because, this is how it is, right? And I don't care if you agree with it or not. This is how I feel, and this is how it is, and too bad. I can really appreciate that. I was fortunate enough when driving through San Francisco a few years back, I stopped by the Maximum PC offices just to see if he might be around. And sure enough, he came from around the corner. He heard my voice. He said, CareyHolzman, is that you? Took me in the back, introduced me to everybody, and it was really neat to meet him. And then since I would bump into him at Consumer Electronics Show and other events where we would just bump into each other. I was looking through my photos to see if we ever got a selfie together, but I guess I never really thought of him as like a celebrity or anything. I never thought, hey, let's get a selfie. I kind of wish I had one now, but I have my memories and I have my experiences. And it's really neat to find a peer in the industry who was so similar. He's only a year older than me. So similar in the way we saw the tech and the way we presented the tech. There's only been a handful of people I can say that were like that. A bit of Steve Bass and John Dvorak are two that come to mind. But really, what Gordon did was he bridged two different sides of both the technical and the every person, and bridged them together in just common sense and critical thinking. And he was always very if he said something, he stood by it, but he wasn't going to like get into an argument about it. He would just say, well, you're just wrong, you know, and that's the end of the conversation. But anyway, I really admired him, and I still do, and he's really going to be missed, and it's just so sad. I understand it was pancreatic cancer. We know that's what got Steve Jobs. It's, I think, what also got George Harrison, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that was not news that I wanted to hear about, but I'm glad I know, and I want to make sure you guys know who was familiar with Gordon. What a great guy. Had our last conversation in Twitter, you know, I'll be saving that for a while. This paperwork right over here, this is something I stumbled on in my inbox. I used to get emails every day from this company I would buy my parts from before the days of YouTube back. This is dated 2003, April of 2003. And I thought it might be fun to go back and look at what parts we were buying and how much we were paying before we start today's build. I also wanted to just very quickly, I forgot to do this. We'll put a link here to Gordon's memory here from PCWorld.com. It's on the homepage right now. And of course, Gamers Nexus did a nice tribute to him. And several other video channels have also done. I mean, nobody's got a negative thing to say about Gordon. Gordon was the man. I mean, just the man. Anyways, you want to read more about that and his accomplishments and what made him different in this IT journalism world, be sure and check out the PC World article and watch the video from Gamers Nexus. Okay, now I want to show you that price sheet. I can pull that up. Let's see. Does that work? No, not working. Why isn't that working? Oh, I probably have to maximize the window. Is that what I have to do? So we're going to go back over to this paperwork. I printed this out, and then I thought, I can probably just show it to you on screen. It just takes me a minute to figure out. Huh. Bear with me for just a second. Well, that's not going to work. Shouldn't be this difficult. Go there, that works, and if we go here, that doesn't work. I wonder why. I wonder why. No, none of that's doing it. Well, wasn't expecting that. There we go, finally. So if I bring that up, and let's get rid of camera 1 here for a second so you can see that. Oh, now it's on camera 2. All right, now, hey, it's live, what do you want? All right, so we go and look at these. This would be a parts list. And remember, there was Amazon, but they were just selling books at the time. And you know, any sort of online ordering was still a little bit sketchy. I was very nervous about it. And what you're going to see here on this list, it's a local reseller, so you had to have a business to buy from this place. And it wasn't like they were running you through the ringer. As long as you had a business card or something that, you know, said you were reselling, that was good enough for them. But they weren't open to the public unless the public knew enough on how to fake pretending to be a business. But nonetheless, I would buy all of my parts for all of my customers' upgrades, builds, and repairs. This is how we did it. I'd get in the car, I would drive to their location, and if I got something bad, I have to get in the car, drive all the way back. But they always took care of me. Returns were never a problem. There was always Fry's Electronics, and Fry's Electronics was a nightmare to return anything to or to find somebody to help you. So as you can see, back in 2003, we were buying these motherboards, Pentium 4s, and if we scroll down, these motherboards for AMD CPUs here, the 7VAX from Gigabyte. There's some motherboard manufacturers you don't hear from anymore, like Lead Tech. The CPUs we were buying were Intel Celeron. Look at the speeds on these, 1.2. Look how much money we're paying. 2.4 gig is 172.50. Now remember, this is 2003 money, which is worth about twice as much. I would estimate that anything you see for $100 would be about $200 in today's money. Remember the AMD Duron processors, and then of course the Athlon XPs. Now during this time, I probably sold more of this AMD Athlon than any other chip. A lot of people think I'm an Intel fanboy, when in fact, I'm a fan of staying in business and giving my customer value. And that, at this period of time, was the value proposition, right, in the AMD XP line. I recall the 2400 Plus being very popular, but anything in the AMD Athlon lineup, I was probably selling 10 Athlon XPs to one Intel, because the Intel chips, well, as you can see, they just weren't all that good. And price-wise, you know, if you're looking at a comparison of, say, a 2 gigahertz 2400 at $120, you'd have to get to, let's see, the Intel equivalent of that was probably like, it was significantly more money, $50 more here. And you know, that's like $100 more today. The SD RAM we were using, and we were converting over to DDR RAM at the time. So you could get a board with SD RAM or DDR. Just like today, you can go DDR4 or DDR5, depending on the board. And then 128 meg of RDRAM, which I think was RAM bus memory, if I'm not mistaken. That didn't last too long, from Intel. Cases, we had Hermes cases, Atlas, Enermax, Lite-On, Codagen, Ahanix, Liberty, Dyna, Enlight, Award, PowerMax, Antec. Most of these companies, they're not around anymore, but others like InWin, they're still doing it. Now, when it came to storage, your bottom line was 20 gigs. 40 was probably the most common used. And you'll see there was a 5400 spin and a 7200 spin, and there's a price difference between them because the 5400, even though same capacity, same manufacturer, was quite a bit slower. Then if you had the money, actually for only 10 more bucks, you could double your space to 80. But then you had to spend another 40 bucks, 50 bucks to get to another 40 gigs on top. So definitely the proposition value was probably right here. And they sold SCSI drives, SCSI drives at the time, 18 and 36 gigs, 10,000 RPM. Those were your super fast. And by super fast, I mean really, really slow by today's standards. And then when it came to card readers, floppy drives, you've got a TIAC floppy, TIAC 1.44 floppy disk here, 10 bucks. They weren't even much 22 years ago. You can get the nice Alps black one for $2 more. There's the iOmega 250 meg zip drive for $66 and the 750, which never really saw the success, at $114, and that's without any discs. There's a PCIe parallel port, not PCIe, PCI, and Highpoint was still making RAID controllers even back in the day as they do today. Video cards, we were buying companies like Gainword and PowerColor, Lead Tech, ATI had their Expert line. And Creative had a camera. This isn't a video card. This is some kind of a web camera. And monitors were all CRTs. Well, no, I take that back. These say they're LCDs. You can see the price on a 15-inch LCD, $275. Nowadays, they're about $75. The regular CRTs were being phased out, so I believe these might have been CRTs. I'm not sure. You'd have to look those models up. And then keyboards and mice. You know, you got all your classics there. Microsoft and Logitech still making keyboards and mice today. Fax modems. US Robotics 2976. A SmartLink 11-wave. CD-ROM drives. Look how much money CD-ROM drives were. Pioneer had a Blu-ray. Sorry, not a Blu-ray. There was no such thing as Blu-ray. They had a DVD burner, $260. Woo! And here's a retail, also $265. Sound cards, ESS, Sound Blaster, Benwin. This is just a microphone. These are both microphones. How about tape backup drives? Seagate had their own line of tape backups, 20 gig, 40 gig, Traven or Traven. Speakers. Look how much we're paying for a pair of speakers. There's Norton Antivirus 2003 OEM, $14. Couldn't give it to me. We're paying $95 for Windows 98, $87 for Windows XP. Remember, double those prices for today's equivalent. Windows 2000 Professional was nearly $300 in today's prices. Same as Windows XP Pro. And then, of course, server was a lot more money. Can you imagine Windows 2000 small business server? You had to pay $1,000. And Windows 2000 Advanced Server with 25 user licenses was $2,650, which is over $5,000 today. Wow, we paid a lot of money for Microsoft, and all these people complaining about paying $15 for a license. You can understand why. I just stand beside myself and go, what? But this is sort of the downside, I suppose, of having the knowledge and the experience, is knowing where we came from instead of just being where we are. The history that I have with this company goes back quite a ways, and you can see they had quite a long inventory here. You know, network switches and hubs that were 10100. Wireless was 11 megabits per second. That was when wireless was still new, 802.11b. And then, of course, there were uninterruptible power supplies by companies like Belkin and SmartLink. And, of course, APC, which is still around today. And routers. These would have been wired routers, more than likely. And modems built in some of these. In some cases, these are way cheaper today than they are. Way cheaper then than they are today, but they're a lot more complicated today. This is a shuttle Intel P4. I don't know. This is a bare bones case with a motherboard, and the motherboard was proprietary to the shuttle case. So you had to get it bare bones. You couldn't just buy the board, and you couldn't just buy the case. One was not good without the other. And you put your own Intel CPU in there, RAM, storage, operating system, power supply. I think it came with a power supply. Can't remember. Then they had rack-mounted servers they sold here, KVM switches, as well as they had a couple laptops. Never bought a laptop from them. They had some toolkits and USB panels. Zip drive cartridges were $9 a piece. And then if you wanted to buy extra labor and warranty, they would sell that too. And they were great people. I really enjoyed working with them. I think they had a great inventory. And this is what I could offer my customers. And then I would just mark the parts up like $10. And I'd be lucky if I made $100 on the whole thing. So in that way, not much has changed. But for those of you who've been around a while, as I have, I thought you might enjoy taking a look back at. Used to get these once a week, and I started saving them because I said, you know, I'm going to want to look back on this in 20 years, and then totally forgot they were in my inbox. So yes, a lot of messages in my inbox, 30,000, something like that. It's all very well organized. In any event, I just thought that'd be fun to look at. I hope you all have a great Christmas Eve day, or Christmas Eve, depending on where you're watching this from. And let me see what you're saying in the chat room here. Gotta scroll all the way up. Here we go. Wayne Ellison joins us and says hello. There's Shamim Kajviras and Mortant 1210. And again, a thank you to our friend Mortant 1210 for that very generous Amazon gift. Was it an Amazon gift card or PayPal? Yesterday, it was very kind. Thank you so much for that. That's Thomas. Luke Greenia saying hello, and Mark Gaines is there in the chat. Mark Gaines is a very generous contributor. We appreciate you very much. All of our members in green, our friend LRCX there in California, John Paul Bacon, and John says hopefully they'll have an X70E counterpart to the LiveMixer. So far, mum's the word. I don't know anything about any LiveMixer AMD version for the new generation of chip, the 870 series chipset, but I'd be surprised if they didn't release one. But it took a while even for us to get this. This is still a brand new product that just came out. We waited quite a while after we ordered it. I think it was 2 to 3 weeks before we received it. So they're still not, I mean, they're barely keeping up with this. But I imagine they probably have something updated on the AMD side of things. I'd be disappointed if they didn't, but I don't know anything about it right now. Let's see. Try and get through this quickly. There's our friend Colin Hilton. Colin sent a holiday card, and we received that over at Studio A. Thank you, Colin, so much for all of your help and your friendship over the years, and I'm just so glad to see us still part of our community here all the way back since, well, it's because of Colin that we were able to really start live streaming with his generosity that enabled us to get our first 4-port capture card that we've been using ever since, until we just switched it out once again, thanks to the same man, Colin Hilton, who made that possible for a second time. So we can't thank him enough for that. Let's see, what else? See a lot of you saying hello to each other. I love to see that. Love to see our community just engaging with one another. Raj D renews membership, now a member for 21 months. He says, Merry Christmas, Carey, Mara, and all in chat. Well, thank you, Raj. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Raj joins us, I believe, from the UK. Pavlos joins us from Greece. Welcome in, Pavlos. And Paul Connolly says hello from Australia. Okay, sorry if I skipped over. There's a lot of chat happening there, and I don't want to spend too much time because I got a lot of work to do, which I'm sure people want to see. I hope that's why you're here. And Pavlos just became a supporter. Right on. Thanks, Pavlos. What we're going to do today is just prep the motherboard, which is a 2-hour show in and of itself. And that is, we install the CPU. I'm going to put this temporary cooler on it just for now. This cooler may not be adequate enough for this chip under load, but just under idle and Windows updates and stuff, it's fine. But that way we can verify the board works. We'll put the latest BIOS update on, which I'm sure it's going to need. Now the T700 is a bit slower than the T705, but that's okay because the i7 is a bit slower than, or the Core 7 is a bit slower than the Core 9. So I kind of felt like these two went together. You're saving quite a bit of money here and here, and in exchange for the money you're saving, the difference in performance on both is very, very minimal. Only the most extreme enthusiast would even notice it, or somebody under a very heavy, intensive production workload. Most of us, it's just going to be screaming fast. Now, I have a Feijing S880. I've been using a lot of these. I really like them, and we've never seen one bad. Let me go back over here for a second. Let's try this other camera out and see if that works a little better to show you the parts. What do I call it? Close-up camera? Yeah. All right, so there's our Beijing S880. It's out of the box because we've used it before, but I wiped it. Wait a minute. Why do I have this and this? Hold on, I just realized an error in my ways. Okay, this will be used on a future project. I don't need this if I have this. I don't know what I was thinking. So we're gonna just set this aside for another build another day. That was weird. All right, the RAM, this was obviously pulled out of another project. This is OLOy DDR5. I believe this is, yeah, it's got a big 5 on it right there. And this RAM, let me get my glasses so I can see. What's our total amount of RAM here? This is 16 gigs each for a total of 32 gig, and it's 6,000 speed. And RGB up on the top here. All right. All right, I had a few extra parts. Well, at least one. And in our board, I have never taken this out of the box. I've never opened it. So let's do that now. Mark Gaines says, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Mark. Merry Christmas to you. And of course, our friend Buster and Oystein and Frankie B. Paul Gray, Patrick Manny, Douglas Burchell, 3D Everything, Bajan Guy, Morton, Jonathan, Matt, Crazy Vera, Patrick Manny, everybody that I can see on that first screen. Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. I hope they're happy. Happy days. And then this, I don't know, is this just an empty box? Oh, this is Wi-Fi antennas. This board does have Wi-Fi 7 on it. We'll just put that right over there. In the box, the motherboard is in this cardboard tray. So what I'm going to do is just take the board out of here, fold that down a little bit here, and then we'll put this one with the rest of the important parts. And I'll just set that here. And the rest of the box will should be some screws and documentation. Yep, we got some Velcro cable management, a sheet of paper, could use that later. I've got documentation I won't read, SATA ports I won't use, a thermal sensor because everybody online is obsessed with heat for some reason, and a Go Faster sticker. I was thinking, if I put a Go Faster sticker on another Go Faster sticker, would that make my system go twice as fast? Definitely gonna have to try that out later. In the meantime, everything, including the antennas that for some reason were boxed separately, that's all gonna go back in the box. Any spare parts that we have, I noticed there's no screws in here, like for the M.2s. So this must be a toolless installation. It better be, because they didn't give me any screws or anything in here. But anything we have left over, from documentation to any of the other parts, extra screws from any of the other parts, that all goes in the box here. And then when the system is sold to a customer, they will get the motherboard box, which will contain the power cable. If we're using a modular power supply, they'll get all those modular cables. If there's extra screws, if there's other documentation, warranty information, yada, 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 it's all kept together in here. I suggest you do the same. Keep it all together. It doesn't have to be organized as long as it's all together. You may not need any of that stuff for years, and you're definitely going to want it when you need it. So if you can make sure you put this box away somewhere where you can find it in a couple of years' time, you can thank me later for that. Oh, this board has a bit of weight to it. I'm surprised how heavy it is. Now, granted, it's not as heavy as the MSI Meg board, or are they Megs? Yeah, Meg Ace and Meg Unify. Those boards are 2 to 3 times heavier than this, but this is heavier than a normal, average, ordinary motherboard. This thing's got to weigh 6 pounds. Anyway, let's take a closer look here with camera 2, and we'll give it the old spinaroo. A lot of USB on this bad boy, including Thunderbolt, and we've got, I think, Is there any stickers? Tape. I see tape up here. And I see tape here. And I better get my glasses so as I can see if there's other tapes. You guys got any tapes? I don't see any. Wait a minute, there's tape here. I see a pull tab. Whoa. Really? Just that little bit right there? Weird. That still looks like it's got tape on it, even though I just pulled tape off. Sometimes there's tape across the I/O shield here, but I'm not seeing any tape on there. No peel for you. There we go. Set that right over there. I'm going to temporarily, what do I want to do? Let's put in this, it says Blazing M2, and I guess what, you move this little latch forward and then lift up and away, and then there's your heatsink for your Gen 5 NVMe right here. There is a film that covers the thermal tape, which you leave that film on if you're not going to use this, but if you are going to use it, don't forget to take the thermal tape off. There's also thermal tape on the base of it here, which we can remove as well. Let me just set that here. And then we will grab this thermal tape. Or, sorry, the film that's covering thermal tape. Now we're going to grab our crucial RT700. This is a Gen 5 NVMe 2 terabyte. Pretty pricey. I don't recommend you buy one this fast because, quite honestly, you're probably not going to see any difference in performance. But if you like to see those big benchmark numbers and you've got the money to burn, well, have at it. Personally, for half the price, you can get the same storage that'll be generally unnoticeably different in performance. The difference is milliseconds and benchmark numbers. Except for a few of you who are extreme users, but then if you're that extreme, you don't need me to tell you that. You already know that. So let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. This is all you get, and a little documentation which will go into the motherboard box. And the rest of this can go right over there. This plastic clamshell will have little tabs on it intended for your fingers to fit underneath. You shouldn't be going at edges that don't have any indents. It should make it pretty clear where they want you to open it. Your CPU packaging, your RAM packaging, it's all going to be like this. You open that up, and then you'll see indents once again on each side. They want you to pick it up by the edges, like this. We can set that right over there. And then this will go in, it's keyed, it's got a notch here, and that's going to go in just like this. Just like that. And we push down on this and rotate this little dial here. That locks it in. And with the film removed off of our thermal tape, there's two little hooks on the bottom, and those little hooks go underneath this somehow. Not quite sure how you center that. I guess like this. If you turn it the other way, maybe you can see better than I can. It's going to go this way. The little hooks. And then straight down, I guess. Oh, I have to push the lever forward to help it out. I mean, it's not the most... Yeah, that's not really... convincing. There, I just saw the button slide forward. I don't know if you did, but you should be able to pick the motherboard up by that. If it starts to lift off, you did not attach it securely. I'd like to see an improvement on this because, quite frankly, it's a nice board. And now that we've had the experience with ASUS's ProArt Z890, that was such a nice installation method of NVMe's. I'd like to see others adopt it. So again, I want to remind you that when you're buying an NVMe drive for a motherboard that has heat sinks already installed, you want to use your motherboard heat sinks. They're better, they cool better, and they match the layout and aesthetic of your board. But the most important thing is they actually cool better. This heatsink is so much bigger than this one because this is where your Gen 5 is going to go. And Gen 5s run hotter than Gen 4s, and Gen 4s run hotter than Gen 3s. You want to know what Gen 6 is going to do? It's going to run hotter, and the heatsink will be even bigger. You watch. There's nothing under here for us as far as I know. That's just a heatsink for the chipset. And then under here we have another button that if we slide it back and lift up, that reveals a couple more USB port, M.2 ports. There's one here too. 3. So we have 4 M.2 ports. This thing is loaded with I/O. It looks like, if I put this, which way did this go? Put this back here. This one is exposed, so if you were going to put a drive in there, that would be one you'd want a heatsink for. Unless it's Gen 3. But it wouldn't hurt you to have a heatsink even if it was Gen 3. If you're looking for a particular aesthetic or the price is right, it may not be entirely necessary. On a Gen 4, you definitely want a heatsink on it. And if you buy the Gen 4 with a heatsink on it, then you don't have to buy a separate one, and that'll probably save you some money. So that installs our 2 terabyte Gen 5 drive. What else do we need? We need the CPU. Let's open our CPU up and see what we got in here. Now you notice one end of this box is a big old piece of tape. We don't want to cut through all that. Right here, this is the edge you're going to cut. Now this is the Intel Ultra 7. I really feel like that's the better bargain of the new Intel Ultra line right here, because you're paying a fraction of the Ultra 9 with nearly identical chip in performance. It's very, very close. For the price difference, the Ultra 9's not giving you that much more value than what they're charging you 3 times more than what they're giving you compared to the Ultra 7. Well, not 3 times, half as whatever this is, half of what this is just to get 20% more is not a good value proposition. You can just slide the CPU right out the top usually. No, they're not letting me do that anymore. We can undo that little clip cardboard fold right there, and we can just do it this way too. And then this and this, well, those can go over there. And again, our documentation and our Go Faster sticker can go right over here. I'll just leave those where you can see them. They'll go in the motherboard box. This is what our CPU looks like. That's the new Ultra line from Intel. And again, there's a corner cut out right here intended for you to place a finger and a thumb to separate that. There are 2 cutouts on each side. Regardless if you have the chip upside down or not, doesn't matter. Just hold it by the edges. Okay, so we want you to hold it by these edges here. I was trying to give you a better view on the camera. And then we come around to the board here, and we're going to lift this lever up. And this lid folds this way. The chip will always have that triangle that indicates which direction to go in, but you could also just use your eyeballs. And if you notice, there's a little notch right up at the top, and there'll be a notch at the top of the socket. And that notch only lines up to one side, so you cannot put this in backwards. It won't seat. The secret I use is I just look at the writing. The writing should all flow towards me. If you're looking at the board like I am, which is this way, all the writing on the board is going this way. All this writing that's written on the circuit board, on the heat sinks, it all faces this way. So this writing is also going to face that way. And the only time I find that not to be true is on a mini ITX build. But on all ATX and micro ATX builds, that's pretty universal, even with AMD processors. Now, to set this in, I'm just going to very gently line up one of the corners with an edge. and bring it. I try and bring this down as far as I can with my fingers and let it go. And it'll drop just a little bit, and it should be in the socket. If I just try and wiggle this left and right and up and down, try to avoid contact with the top. We don't want to get any oils from our skin or any sort of dirt or debris on there, because that will interfere with the best possible heat transfer with the thermal compound. Now this is just floating above those pins. And those pins are very delicate. We have 1,851 pins underneath this chip. And the reason why this is so hard to clamp down, when we push this down and bring this lever, it's going to squish the chip down onto the pins. So as long as you don't push down on the chip, you won't bend your pins when you're installing it. Or don't put it in on an angle where it's going to potentially make the, well, too steep of an angle where it could make contact. The pins are very, very delicate. Now, sometimes the motherboard manufacturers will put a little rubber protector here on this lever. That is meant to come off and go into the trash can. You're never going to use it again. And then we're going to fold this down. It's going to, whew, did you see that fly off? It's going to give you some resistance. It's pushing that chip down with a certain amount of pressure into that socket. If you ever have to send this motherboard back to the manufacturer under warranty, you're going to need to take your chip and everything out of it. You got to return it the way you bought it. So if you didn't buy it with RAM and a CPU and storage in it, then take all that stuff out, because you will not get it back. And when you expose those pins, because they're delicate, you must put this little cover back on. And remember, sometimes people, they wonder which direction does the cover go on. Direction of the writing always faces down. So if we had to put this back on, it would go on just like it came off. Some people can't remember, did it go on this way or this way? It probably doesn't make much difference, but I'm just telling you, the rule of thumb when dealing with ATX and micro ATX, Intel or AMD builds, is all the writing faces the same way. All right, let's go back over here to camera 1 momentarily. You can see me. Woo! Boy, the color tones, the white balance is very different. This table doesn't look nearly as yellow as it did. Let's see. Looking in the chat, David Graham's joining us. Planet Cryos joins us and says hello. There's Al Finesca saying hello. And Nick Caffrey, there's our friend Frankie B. He just popped in to say hello. He's got to go back to work. He must be one of Santa's elves. Very busy time of year for Frankie. Good to see you, Frankie. Planet Cryos with a $5 super chat. He says, just a suggestion to put yourself in the upper right corner. Hey, you know what? That's a great idea. See if I can, let me try something here. If I put myself in the upper right corner now, wait a minute, on the wrong input. That way you get both looks. I see what you're saying there. We could totally do that. I just don't know. Maybe right there? What do you think? Okay, so thank you for the suggestion there, Planet Cryos, and your $5 super chat. Charlie Purdy with a $20 super chat says, Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas back at you, Charlie. Good to see you, my friend. Gil Garcia joins us, says hello, as well as Tim Too Much. And I think that's everybody here, just in the most recent chat. If you want me to call your name out, you have to be active in the chat room, guys. So in the in prepping the rest of the motherboard, we still have the heatsink to put on. Now, I've used this heatsink prior, which is why it no longer has any thermal compound. So we'll put some thermal compound down here. Even, you know, I'm going to have to take this off and clean it up anyway, but it's definitely not going to be enough to run it without thermal compound. I don't trust it. And then after that, I think we put the RAM in, because the RAM can get in the way of seating the CPU. So I think we'll save the RAM for later. So I guess we'll do the thermal compound right now. Planet Cryo says we just want to see those lips. Okay. Not quite sure. I usually have a pretty good comeback, but you got me on that. I don't even know what to say. Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Jose. All right. Let's see, what do I want to do? I guess I need to clean the bottom of this CPU here. So we'll start by removing the bracket. And I'll grab my isopropyl alcohol, 99% alcohol. You want the highest alcohol content volume possible, so that it'll evaporate without much in the way of, what's the word? Impurities. All right, let's go to the table over here and we'll grab Q-tips and rubbing alcohol. And we're just going to clean this up a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want it as reasonably clean as it's been sitting on a shelf. It's probably got dust we can't see that's built up on it. And I probably, when I took this off, just wiped it with a paper towel and said, you know, I'll do the fine polishing just prior to installing it, which is why I'm doing that now. And that will all evaporate off of there. You'll see not much is coming off on the Q-tip. It's pretty clean. And it's not going to hurt anything. I mean, look, if I just slap thermal compound on this without cleaning it, it's still going to work. It just, we might get a couple degrees more out of it if it's clean. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't make a bigger deal out of it than it is. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. That's not my Gatorade. It's a joke. I thought it was funny. All right. Ooh. I'll add a little bit more to there. No. It's another joke. All right. So, top of the CPU is, it's brand new. It's never been used. I got a bunch of this thermal compound from Scythe. We installed so many of those Mugens. I haven't even installed one in a long time, but I'm still swimming in this stuff. So let me put my glasses back on so as I can see. And then we will squeeze a bit on there. Oh yeah, that's got some good moisture content still in there. It's not dry. I do like the thermal compound that Scythe includes with their coolers. As you can tell, I still use it versus using something else. Then I've got my nitrile gloves here. And these are powder-free, non-sterile gloves. These aren't for medical use. And there we go. We're just going to do a little finger painting. Make some happy little trees. Little Jackson Pollock. Little Van Gogh. Little Rembrandt. Just like that. Looks beautimous. Beautimous. And for the glove, I'm just going to turn it inside out as I take it out so that thermal compound doesn't get all over everything. I'll put that in my little trash pile over there. Now I can put my back plate on. And that's going to go on just like that. I'll hold it on with 2 fingers. Don't touch any of this. Try not to. And I'm going to just rest that. See where my thumb is? On top of this? That's okay to touch. You don't need any sort of electrostatic discharge dissipation when you handle the parts properly. There's nowhere for static to go other than grounded parts, so who cares? All right. Put that right on there. Now this is a stock cooler that Intel included with the 12900, 13900, and 14900 processors only. It's called the Lumineer, I can't remember. And it's one of the reasons why a 14900 CPU costs more than a 14900K. Because you're getting this massive, cool looking air cooler that also has RGB with the Intel logo that rotates. If you want it in any orientation, you just turn the Intel logo whatever direction you want and magnets hold it in place. It's a really clever design. And it looks like I'm not quite finding my target here. See how I keep lifting on the thumb screw to see if it's even starting. It can be hard to tell because once it's started, at least in 2 corners, the other 2 corners will align automatically, and I no longer have to hold it with my thumb. In fact, I think I can put it down now. That one did not start for some reason, and if you tighten the other 3 too much, then you really have to crank down on the last one to make it start into its thread. Now, normally I'd say don't use an electric screwdriver for tightening things down, but I know we're just going to take this back off, so we're going to go one side, opposite side, opposite side, and opposite side. Oh, that one was darn near tight already. And that's it. I mean, that's our cooler install. Now, that's not how I would do it if I was leaving it on here permanently, but this is just for testing, and that's good enough since it's coming right back off. And then we will attach our power cable to our CPU fan. There's a gray fan header on this board. It's different color than any other fan header. It's gray. And that gray one typically means it's for your CPU fan. We've got 3 here. I don't know if you can see them. 1, 2, and 3. And one will be for an all-in-one pump. One will be for an optional CPU fan. Some coolers have 2 fans on them. Mitch had asked me, our good friend Mitch Morrison had asked me about what about coolers that have 3 fans. I've never seen one with 3 fans, but you'd probably need a fan splitter. So I'm guessing this is our pump, this is our CPU fan, and this is our optional secondary CPU fan. And of course, it's all stated in your documentation. This is just an ARGB header. This is to control the RGB. If you don't want to use this, you can just leave this unplugged and use this button to turn the RGB off or back on again if that's what you want. And we've got 2 RGB headers right next to each other right up here, which is pretty darn convenient if you ask me. That goes on there like that. And then when it comes to RAM, you don't need to check your manual. It's always going to go in on a modern motherboard, DDR4, DDR5. You don't use the closest socket nearest your CPU. That first one right there, you're either going to use all 4 of these sockets, in which case it doesn't matter, or you're only going to use 2. So if you're going to use 2 like I am right now, usually the serial number sticker faces the CPU, and do not use the slot closest to the CPU. That's your first channel across Gigabyte, MSI, ASRock, and Asus, and it's been that way for years. You don't have to keep checking it. It hasn't changed in years. And then we're going to use the last slot. So we skip the next one. Make sure we're oriented the same direction with the serial number facing us. Gently slide it into its track. No brute force, okay? It should go in easily. And then one thumb, another thumb. And you do have to put some pressure down. We'll close these other ones up, these other latches. And now our board is ready to test fire. We've prepped it. I mean, that was smooth, right? And so to prep that, I have our regular testing power supply right here. This is the EVGA 700 GD that, well, it'll end up in a build probably in a few months. We rotate these around just to give them a good little workout, make sure they work before we sell them to customers. And these usually don't go to my business clients. These usually go to systems that are lightly used, and I'll put a lightly used power supply. But I consider it well tested, well burned in. And then, of course, I discount them accordingly. And that's, you know, before you ask, that's all local sales only, because the cost of shipping would defeat, you know, any sense of savings there. When Amazon and Newegg and everybody can offer free shipping, that makes all the difference in the world, because this is pretty expensive, about $50 to ship that. Now we've got 2 ATX EPS power connectors here for the CPU, which might be a little difficult for you to see with that cable in the way. But we've got one here and one here, over here. Now, you don't need to use both of these unless you're going to be overclocking your chip. You can use both if you want to, and your power supply has the additional EPS. But for now, and again, we're just testing this anyway, we're just going to go on the one that's labeled as number 1, which is the one closest to the I/O shield. And we will just plug that in. Let me see if I can. If I can do this upside down and backwards so you can see it, that would be great, wouldn't it? It'd be great for you. Not so good for me. Test out my skills. Skills. Now, some motherboards won't matter if you plug into one or two, as long as it's in one or the other. And others will specify in the manual. But I just play it safe, and I don't have to look at the manual if I always plug into one first. That's the way I see it. That's how I do my life, and I build a lot of machines for a living, and I've built more than you can shake a stick at over the years. So I have my process, and I'm certainly not telling you how you should do it, but rather explaining why I do it the way I do. You don't have to approve of it, and you don't have to follow it. Just so we're clear that there's no misunderstanding about the point of my videos. Now, if we move this power supply a little bit so as I can see, let's see, we'll go this way. So to power this on, we're going to need power cable. We're going to need an HDMI cable because our chip has built-in video. We can add a graphics card to this, making it an amazing streaming machine if we want to. Streaming machine? I meant gaming machine. And I need a keyboard and a mouse. Do I need a power button, or do we have a recessed power button on here? Nope, we need a power button. There's our Wi-Fi card right there. So let me grab a power button. And Amazon sells these little power buttons here. You see me use these all the time. And I like this one. This is a little bit more expensive. This one might have been $10, but you can get like a package of 5 cheapies for $2 or something, $4. And you can hook up, there's a little LED if you want to hook it up. I'm just going to hook up the switch, which just always goes. Hold on a second, let me look at this. It always goes right there, that top row of pins. It's always going to be horizontal and not vertical. So just right there on the top row. It's always the same on all motherboards. Mini ITX, they move that connector over here, but other than that, it's all the same. Again, things are a little bit different on Mini ITX, but Micro ATX and ATX are all mostly built the same. Now, let's just go back to camera 1 since everything's looking a little bit tight here. Let's go back full screen. And let's go to, how do we want to do this? We'll move this over here. Make sure the power supply is in the off position before we give it power. Just safety first, that's all. You don't have to have the power supply off. You don't have to wear your seatbelt in the car. You don't have to wear a safety helmet on a construction site. Okay. All right. We're not plugging in any internet access because we're going to do our first boot up and we don't want it to have to initiate that, or there's no reason for us to have it. It's one more thing that if the system doesn't boot up, we have to check everything, and the more things we have, the more things we have to check. So we're not using it. I do need an HDMI cable, which I think I'm standing on. And a keyboard and a mouse, right? So HDMI is going to go here. Now this only has an HDMI out. It doesn't have DisplayPort. It doesn't have any other video output, but you can get an adapter out of Thunderbolt to DisplayPort or HDMI. It's not included, but you can totally do that. And my keyboard and my mouse can finally come out and play. So we'll turn that on. We'll grab the dongle, turn that on, and plug it into literally any USB port back here. And that's it. That's all she wrote. So now, when I turn the power supply on, you might see some RGB light up. Oh yeah, some RGB just lit up. And then I'm going to tap this power button. You'll see the RGB lit up on the cooler. And I'm going to switch over now to our HDMI cable, which should hopefully give us a power on self-test screen. So, well, it says Elgato, that's the capture card. And what we're going to wait for is for the system to train our RAM and our CPU. It's never met before. It says, hi, how are you? How fast can you speak? What's your latency? Et cetera, et cetera. And then it'll give us our power on self-test screen or post screen. Now, if I stick 96 gigs of RAM or 128 gigs of RAM in this, you might be sitting here a while. And people are like, what's wrong with my board? The problem with your board is you're too impatient. You need to let it sit. Now, it's saying for our very first boot ever that our UEFI defaults have been loaded. Press F1 to run setup. So if I hit F1 on the keyboard, F1, or is F1 to continue? It should take us into a BIOS, and we're going to see in just a minute here what the BIOS has detected with regards to our CPU and RAM. So we've got our Ultra 7 265K, 32 gigs of RAM. That's all matching up, and we're on version 1.36. But the current version of BIOS is 2.02. I just checked it last night. We go to Asrock's website and look under support for this motherboard, and you'll see that there is a 2.02 BIOS. Now, Intel is addressing some issues with their new first gen chip here, and this latest BIOS update should address 3 of those issues. And then another BIOS update coming should address the last 2. They're primarily affecting gaming performance. So let me go back over here to camera 1 for a second. I'm going to take this flash drive, which I've already downloaded from ASRock, and extracted the BIOS file. We've shown this dozens of times before. I plug it into any USB port, any at all, and give that just a second to initialize. And we're going to go back over here, and we're going to select, let's see, if I right click on camera 2 to go full screen, then I can see it the way you guys see it. Now, we might see the CPU running a little hot. Motherboard temperature, CPU temperature's at 37. That's actually pretty good. Again, this cooler isn't really designed for this chip, but it'll do for right now. We're going to go to Instant Flash. And of course, we got to make sure we're not running BitLocker. Now, this is a brand new NVMe drive, so it's never been formatted or partitioned. So we have no worry about BitLocker. Are you sure you want to update the BIOS? You'll see it found it automatically on the flash drive, because that's the only thing I have on that flash drive. And then, while that's flashing, I'm going to take this garbage and put it in my garbage can. Done with that rubbing alcohol, we'll put that away too. And the key to a successful BIOS flash is to leave it alone. It's really all you have to do. Patience. Patience is absolutely critical when running this process. If you interrupt the process, it may brick the motherboard, requiring you to send it back to the manufacturer for warranty. And you're going to be without a board for about 3 weeks, plus the cost of shipping to get it there. They'll pay for the shipping back, all because you were impatient and you couldn't wait 3 minutes. Instead, you're going to now wait 3 weeks. I don't know how that math works, but this is what people do. Okay, after pressing enter, the system will automatically reboot. Please wait for a few seconds, and the BIOS update will continue. So you understand the please wait part of this, right? So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And then we're going to wait. And when it's done, we're either going to get a no boot device found, or we're going to get back into the BIOS again. That's how you'll know when it's done. So again, you've asked it to do something. Now get out of its way and let it do it. Don't interrupt it. Don't rush it along. It's running as fast as it possibly can. So if you have that impulsiveness in you, then find something to occupy your time, because it'll wait for you. You can leave this for 3 days and come back. It'll still patiently be waiting for you. So, maybe consider the same in return. That's all I'm suggesting. It's just a suggestion to make your life a little easier. But I'm still going to walk around here picking up some trash while you guys watch this BIOS update happening live, unscripted, unrehearsed. This is how it's done. It's pretty much the same on ASUS and Gigabyte and MSI. They might phrase it a little differently. It might look a little differently. It's the same process. It's been that way for 15 years, 20 years. And I've probably shown this 200 times, but we'll show it again, because we get brand new viewers every single day. Have never seen me before, never heard of me, and everything I've done in the past means nothing. So we'll keep repeating it as we welcome in new viewers and hopefully encourage them to build their own computers. Now, while I'm waiting, I can be reading the chat room. Al Perez joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Al. Dean Summersheim says, Merry Christmas. Back at you, my friend. Pablo says, the close-up camera really makes a difference. You know, I've got another camera I wanted to use for close-ups. I just don't know how well it's going to work, but since we're waiting here, let me step around the studio and see if I can find it. Well, I mean, I know where it is. It's just, will I be able to easily hook it up? I don't know. But we could give it a shot. Jump over here. You taking pictures, Mara?
Yes.
Is that for the Instaface?
Kinda.
Do I mind getting out of the way?
No.
You want me to take the picture?
Yeah, because I can't.
Oh, you're too short.
I'm too short.
Said Carey to nobody ever except Mara. And a bunch of elementary school students. All right, you just want a top-down shot?
Yes.
What do you see if that works? Okay, let's see what we got. Paul Howe says, hello, welcome in, Paul. NZ Guy said, that's an awesome motherboard. I think so. I love the LiveMixer boards, even the prior generation. If anything, they toned down this current generation. It doesn't have that graffiti look anymore, which I wish they didn't do. I wish they kept the graffiti look, but it's a little more polished and professional looking now. Now, as the system is powering itself off and back on again, I'm not touching it. I'm letting the system shut itself off and then, you know, do what it wants to do to finish the BIOS update. This could repeat numerous times or just once. I don't know. It varies from motherboard to motherboard. So we're just going to let it sit and it'll let us know when it's done, once again, by giving us a no boot device error or returning us back into the BIOS. Let's see what happens. Just a minute. The black screen is normal as it processes. And as you can see on the screen, we're looking at version 2.20. And everything else looks good. So with that, let me jump back over to camera one here for a moment. And what I can do is I can take the HDMI cable out of this right here. And this was intended to be used on camera for close-ups, and I just, with everything going on, I just can't build PCs and run a business and do all this and set the studio up and run all the testing. And it has sat patiently waiting for me to get to it. And then we got kicked out of Studio B and we had to start all over again in Studio C. So until we get all this set up, this is just waiting in the wings. But it may be that you guys don't like the picture quality of it. So for me, this is more of my, I'm going on vacation one of these days and I'll take my big camera. But every year the camera keeps getting better on my smartphone. But this is a full frame, Sony 7C. Anyway, it's a nice camera. It's got a nice lens on it. And let me just try something here. If we plug this in here instead of in there, I've got to take the lens cap off. Well, I guess I already did that. And then turn the camera on, if I can remember how to do that. We should be able to, let's see, zoom this out. Oh, that is zoomed out. Yeah, it's a big lens. Let me try this and see what you guys think of the picture quality. Oh, that's terrible. Hold on a second. I don't think I've got a cable plugged all the way in. Bear with me for one moment here. Plug that in there. And let me make sure, yeah, that didn't go all the way in. Now, can we see it? That's better. So as we look at the board, if I can hold my hand steady, that'll be another issue. You'll see we've got a couple USB 2s. There's 4 USBs right there, USB 2. If we come around the side and over, there's a USB 3 and a 3.1, so that's 2, 4, 6, 7. And just keep moving around here. I would have to turn this to see the I/O. Where were we at? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, even though those are Thunderbolt. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I'm missing 2. They're probably on the board. There's another 2 somewhere. Oh, there's 2 USB 3s. There's my other 2. I have a USB 3 right. Where's my USB 3 right there? That's 2 ports. USB 3 right there. That's 2 ports. That's a total of 23 USB ports. Anyway, so that's the expensive camera. I don't know if that picture quality is any better, worse. You guys will just have to let me know. And then we'll decide what we're going to do with it. Because if I hang this up, it's pretty heavy. And it's very hard to get to the buttons. If this is way up here, pointing down, imagine trying to reach up and turn the buttons on. So I haven't quite figured that part of it out yet. And that's what's been, it's not just a matter of just plugging it in and turning it on. There's the whole configuration of getting it out at 4K was something I worked on the other night. Finally got that figured out because that's a very different way of doing it from the camcorder, which is different from doing it from the Panasonic, which is different from doing it to the Canons. But I've got them all configured for 4K output now, and you'll have to let me know if you guys see any difference between, at least in this case, the big DSLR here. Now the DSLR is not good for recording for 2 hours. They overheat and shut down. They're fine if you want to film and edit. You know, you film a few minutes at a time. But for a long-term broadcast, these can, especially at 4K, they can begin to overheat. The camcorders can run 24/7 for months. They have cooling fans. But that being said, that is one of the studio assets that we've just not had the opportunity to implement yet. We're done with this flash drive, so that can come out, and then this will be erased. It'll go back on to back into the drawer to be an empty flash drive whose sole purpose is to flash BIOSes, because I do it a lot, and I don't want to have to pick my BIOS out and potentially pick the wrong one. So I use a blank flash drive for that. Put the BIOS on it, flash it, then erase the BIOS. So it's a blank flash drive to be used again for some other motherboard, or even the same board when a new BIOS comes out. Then I have no confusion over which BIOS to pick. And then Windows 11. We can install Windows 11 on here, which is on one of my flash drives here. Let's see. Where's my Windows 11? It's in here. In here somewhere. Windows 11. Got it right here. Now this is a fast flash drive. It does cost more, but data transfers happen much quicker as long as you plug it into a fast USB port, which is usually indicated with the color blue. So again, with no Ethernet plugged into it, we're going to go back over here to this machine, which I didn't plug it back in, did I, to the video? Take this little adapter off of here. Plug that bad boy right back in there, and that should take us back to our BIOS screen, maybe? Maybe not. So what I will do, let's put camera 1 back up for a second, and we'll figure out why we're not getting any video. Definitely did not like me unplugging it. Let me put this little adapter back in the drawer, because I'm definitely going to need that. I'm going to just cut power to this. And with our Windows 11 USB, We'll turn this back on and we'll hit our power button one more time, like that. Now it should, without me adjusting the BIOS, I don't change the date or the time, don't mess with it. Don't worry if it's a few hours or a few days off, who cares? Leave it alone, because you can get in there and you can accidentally hit something you don't realize you pressed, and then you're sitting there diagnosing a problem that you can't figure out, and then you end up returning parts that don't need to be returned, all because you just couldn't leave the date and time alone. The date and time are going to automatically set. Once we've got Windows loaded and connected online, it'll synchronize with the time server, and it'll fix the date and time. There's no benefit to doing that now. So what we're waiting for is the system is processing, right? It should be looking for a bootable device just by default, leaving the BIOS alone. Since it sees that NVMe drive can't be booted to, it tries the next thing, which will be the USB. The USB Windows 11 installation process will format and partition that drive and copy all the Windows 11 required installation files to it. And the next time the system boots, it says, oh, I can start to the NVMe drive now, and it'll choose that first over the USB. That's how you don't get stuck in an installation loop. If you just leave it alone, that's the BIOS defaults. And if you've changed things and you can't remember what you changed, just go back into your BIOS, and F5 or F7 usually loads your BIOS defaults. Or at least when you go to exit, one of the options there is usually load optimized defaults or something along those lines. Then save and exit, and that returns the BIOS back to its self-reliance so that you don't have to sit there and nurse it along. This isn't 1992 anymore. There's no reason to do that stuff. There used to be, not anymore. So let's go through the process together, as I've shown many times before, and I will show you again consistently the same way every single time. We leave all this as English, click Next, English keyboard. We want to install Windows 11 and agree. I don't know why that's there, but that's what we want to do. Product key, we select we do not have a product key at this time. This installs a forever running trial version that will leave a watermark on the screen and prevent some personalization, but otherwise it's fully functional. I don't want to spend money on a product key if I have to send the motherboard back, because the product key gets tied for lifetime to the motherboard. So we want to make sure everything is working and everything is perfect, and activating the product will be very last thing we do next to, say, cable management. Heck, we could probably do cable management first, to be honest. But I am going to buy a product key for Windows 10 Pro because, well, Windows 10 is still supported until October 14th of 2025. It is a free upgrade to Windows 11 Pro. And all you need is the Windows 10 Pro product key. You don't need to install Windows 10 Pro. Now, when Windows 10 Pro falls out of support, the free upgrade will probably end, but so long as you activated before that, you're activated for life to that specific motherboard. You cannot move the product keys around, and the product key is $15 for a Windows 10 Pro product key from our friends at SCD Key Deals, SCD Key, using our Carey coupon code. All of the links and information in the video notes below this video. So with that, we'll click Next and agree to the license agreement by hitting Accept. Again, no internet is connected at this time. I cannot stress that enough, how important this is, unless you like creating a Microsoft account. Now, Disk 1 and Disk 0, even though you see all these partitions, you'll notice all of these are Disk 1, and Disk 1 is our Windows 11 installer USB. And Disk 0 is our 2 terabyte unallocated. There's only one Disk 0 and 4 Disks 1. Each partition represents Disk 1 here, and only unallocated space is on Disk 0. So you want to make sure you're installing to the proper drive. This is also why you only install one drive in your system until you get Windows installed. Once you do that, then install your data drives. Or don't, and do it the hard way. Have fun. But this is how we do it to make sure we get it right every single time. Hit Next. Give it a second while it partitions and formats that partition of the brand new drive, that brand new Crucial T700. And then, in just a moment, it'll start to copy over all the files needed for Windows 11. Once it does that, it'll reboot, and it'll start from that NVMe drive and use those installation files to begin our Windows 11 installation. And we no longer need the flash drive for the rest of the process. However, I just usually leave it plugged in because I'm too lazy to remove it. I'll get around to it. I'm just being honest with you. All right, and just gives you a summary. It's ready to install. We're not keeping anything because it's a brand new drive anyway. So just hit install, and this will happen pretty quickly. And while it's running, I can put myself back in a corner here, and let's see what you have to say in the chat room. James Harris says, Merry Christmas and the best for the new year to you and your family. Well, thank you, James. And you too, my friend. Thanks to all of you. I hope you all have a great holiday. Of course, we'll be back between Christmas and New Year, so we hope we will see you again to say Happy New Year at that time. Feel like it's a little early now. I expect to see you between now and then. If you have any questions or concerns, this is the time to ask while I'm waiting for this install to complete, or we'll just stare at the screen together. You can see my hands are off during this process. Just you've instructed the machine to do something. Now get out of its way and let it do it. I can't stress that enough. That's what it's looking like from what I'm seeing. Guess I can put this away while I'm waiting, huh? Did anybody notice any difference between that camera and the others, for better or for worse? Curious about your feedback on that. It's supposed to be better, but may actually just be better for still photography. I'm not sure. Oh, there's a tight fit back there. I definitely have to relieve some of the congestion in here. It's pretty well loaded up. Gary says the installation seems a little different than it used to be. Yeah, that's the Windows 24H2 install. If you go back a couple of months ago, back in October, when we reviewed the 24H2, we went over that installation difference. I suppose you might have missed that video, but it should still be there for you to watch. So we do a lot of documenting every day, and if you miss a few episodes or you miss a week, I mean, you don't know what you missed until you realize what you missed. So, yeah. Let's see, let's finish this up. It wants to know where we are. United States, yes. And United States, and secondary keyboard, no. I don't have internet. And we're gonna create a username on this. I don't know, let's just call it user, I guess. Enter blank password. And then, of course, I like to leave location setting on, so my date and time will be set for me every day when this is on, because the clock does naturally lose a few seconds. That's just the way they are. And over time, you lose minutes, and then minutes can become, well, even more minutes. So it'll synchronize with the internet time server from time to time, usually daily, if not multiple times a day, and ensure that you always have the right time. And Can auto adjust for daylight saving time so you don't have to remember. And just keep life easy. Al Perez with a $2 super chat. Right on. Thank you, Al. Nick Cavry says, I think Studio C is going to be fun. Cameras seem to be much sharper. The ability to switch slots seems to be easier, and that's going to be very attractive. We are working on... So the problem was we were outgrowing Studio A. It was never intended to be a studio. Studio B was always going to be temporary, so we didn't want to set roots in there. We didn't want to put too much structure in place that we'd have to remove. But we were buying equipment and tools we were intending to use in a permanent studio location because we were in talks for 3 or 4 years about the potential to buy Studio B. Honestly, I think we dodged a bullet on that. We could not find an agreement on a value and went our separate ways. But here in Studio C, we are going to stay indefinitely at this time. There are no plans to go anywhere else. And well, one day I would love the ability to move to Michigan. There are no plans in place right now. That's well out of our budget. And we don't see any way that we're going to hit that budget within a reasonable time frame. If that should change, we'll let you know. But we're pretty much planning on being here in Studio C permanently from this point forward. So it's worth it to put the time and effort into building it out in the best way possible, strictly as intended as a studio. And that's why we built it from the ground up. Everything here is new, from the walls, the texture, the electrical system, the lighting, the flooring, everything is new. Lots and lots of money went in just getting it this far. And we still have a lot of work to do, but I can't do everything at once. I can't help my customers and do videos and set up the studio. You know what I mean? Like I got to pick one. So we'll see what I can get done over the Christmas break. I don't know. I'll probably be filming every day during the Christmas break. You know me. Now we've booted into Windows. Let me come over here for a second. Back to camera 1. Let's go ahead and remove my Windows 11 flash drive. Remember, we're going to activate that much later. It's fine. And I've got videos that show you how to make that legal and free from Microsoft. Everything we're doing is 100% legal on the up and up. I have a business to run, and I'm held accountable. Some of my customers are attorneys. You definitely don't want to upset them. And then, let's see, we need internet. So I've got my cable that I'm stepping on right down here. And when we plug this in, once we get connected and start doing our Windows updates, the time and date should automatically adjust. So for me right now, it's the 24th of November, and it's 2:27 p.m. Phoenix time. But that is not what the clock says down in the bottom right corner. So let me get rid of camera 1 for a second. Let's focus on the desktop together and why you don't need to worry about setting your date and time by hand in the BIOS. First of all, we may not even have working Ethernet, although I just noticed it did go to an IP address. This comes up automatically to offer to install our drivers automatically once you have access to the internet. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but this sure does make it a lot lazier. Let Asrock's utility scan your system and look for any BIOS updates. And in the meantime, did you notice the time change? While I was talking, our time down here changed. But it somehow thinks I'm in Pacific time, which is an hour behind Phoenix time. So if I right-click and just change, there's one of two things. Under Adjust Date and Time, we can set the time zone to be automatic. You see, by default, the time zone is not set automatically. So based off my IP address, it just knows I'm on the Western United States. If I turn that on, it'll know I'm in Phoenix. It doesn't know my address, but it knows I'm in Maricopa County, which is a very, very big place. And it's saying, yeah, you're at -7. And now it's all done. I didn't have to touch anything other than, you know, click the mouse. Now, the auto driver installer from Asrock says these are all newer drivers that we've noticed you are missing. And you'll notice there's no Norton 360 on here. Asus. There's, you know, it's all just legit drivers. So all you have to do is hit the update button. There's no scrolling up or down. This is everything. And it's going to automatically install and reboot for us so that we don't have to do this by hand. And when it's done, everything for any missing drivers or any out-of-date drivers for the chipset, the wireless or wired internet, Ethernet, along with sound card and sound utility, which you don't get with just a driver, a Bluetooth driver, Intel chipset driver, all of that. You don't have to click and extract and click and extract and go to the website and go to the support and download, and this just does it all for you automatically. And once you do this, it won't bother you anymore. Just a first boot thing. Of course, you can always go to Asrock's website and download the Auto Driver Installer manually, or go in your BIOS and re-enable it again. It just enables on the first boot and then switches back to disabled again. It's really, really convenient. I can't say enough good about systems that offer this without offering the unnecessary adware from, McAfee or Norton or any of the other like of the like. Scott says Marlena would freeze in Michigan. She'd be a Marasicle. FM Lazar says, did you hack the ISO to bypass the incessant demanding of a Microsoft account? I used Rufus, and again, it seems like a lot of you aren't watching our past videos, but we have videos that explain to you how to create. So when Windows 11 24H2 came out in October, we created the media, we showed you how to do it, and we showed you how it was different from prior versions. And we'd strongly recommend you go back and watch those videos if that kind of information is of value to you. It's sitting there waiting for you to watch it. But Rufus makes it real easy. We're still downloading our ISO image from Microsoft. We're just not using the Microsoft Installation Assistant or bootable media creator. But we're still sourcing our files from Microsoft and then using the free version of Rufus to create that media. That's it. There's no hacking involved. Rufus offers some options when it detects that you're about ready to create a Microsoft Windows bootable image. A menu will suddenly appear and say, do you want these things, and check on or off. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. See if I missed any other questions in here. BLK Carbon Dragon says, Carey, I've got an Asus B450-F motherboard. I tried installing Windows 10 or 11, but it keeps saying it can't find the motherboard drivers, then it shuts down. Any suggestions? What I would suggest, if you're looking for that kind of help, is take a picture of the screen as it's happening, and then attach that to an email to our show email address. And normally we don't handle one-on-one tech support unless you're a member. It's the holiday season, we're happy to help you. Just send an email with that information about what's happening, when it started. Is this a new computer? Has it ever had Windows 10 or 11 on it before? And when did the problem start? And then a picture. We need to see the error that you're getting and when you're getting it, even a small video, something that can help us understand. We need to know how much RAM you've got in the system, what CPU you're using, and are these all new parts, or is anything, did this system used to work and now we need the story here, how we got here. And then with that, we can probably help you do the best we can. And of course, the chat room's always a great place to go for answers. Our chat room is very friendly and very knowledgeable. And if anybody there has any suggestions, you might watch for that as well. But that's the email if you want to reach out to us, showcasecreate@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Looks like it's going to reboot, or it's installing a video driver right now, which just so happened to occur as I was getting rid of the email address. Kind of scared me for a minute. Timing. Couldn't have planned that if I wanted to. Just looking for any other questions here. And our driver install is almost done. Once we're done with the driver install, we can do our Windows updates. What we're testing for right now is to make sure no blue screens are occurring during this process. It's kind of a burn-in test. I don't want to really burn this in with this cooler on here. I'd much rather have a more adequate cooler for this chip. For all I know, this could be adequate. I haven't tested it. I'm making an assumption that it's not. I'm sure we can do better. And the cooler seems to be running pretty loudly, pretty fast, much more so than normal or expected. And I didn't expect it to really, be the right cooler or the best cooler. I just needed something to get us through the setup. Once it passes everything, assuming it does, then I have to figure out what case I want to put this in with what power supply. And then there'll be a part 2 to this video where we do just that. Now, there's been a lot of talk on the internet about how terrible these Intel chips are, and it's just all wrong. There's so much false information on the internet. People obsessed with heat on their SSDs and their CPUs. Like, no one has heat problems unless you're overclocking or abusing your system. If you're using it in a way it's intended, and if you've installed your cooler properly and your cooler is functional, you're not going to have any heat problems. It doesn't matter if you put it into a sealed case. It's just not going to get hot. Not to a point that it would cause any damage. It could get hot enough to start throttling, but even then it should shut down. If you built it all correctly, it'll shut down and protect itself. So it's nearly impossible to damage a chip through heat unless you're overclocking or overvolting it. Now, BIOSes were doing that, but the latest BIOSes don't do that anymore. So that was affecting the 13th and 14th gen. So people were complaining about that. And then the 15th gen isn't really any faster, but it's a whole new technology. Brand new, first generation product, even though Intel's calling it 15th gen. It doesn't make it bad. It just doesn't make it much better than the 13th or 14th gen. So whether or not we use the 13th or 14th gen or this 15th gen makes about a little difference one way or the other. They're all pretty much the same, except this is the latest platform that we're building on going forward. And I like to make videos that are current of today. I've already made videos on 13th and 14th gen, enough for all of us. Okay, so it's time to move on. And so while this chip may not be 10% faster, like they usually are generation to generation, it's pretty much just as fast, but doing it in a whole different way. Sort of like a gas car versus an electric car. When they first came out, they may not have been that much faster, but it was a brand new tech. And then as they evolve from that point forward, they get better and better. So we're just seeing the beginnings of this. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, are you going to eat 6 eggs? No, I think I'll have a half dozen instead. Okay. So the information online is just grossly false. People talk about the TBW being the lifespan of an SSD. That's the warranty of your SSD. Have you ever bought anything in your life, and when the warranty expires, you figure, well, that's good. Hey, I just bought this $3,000 laptop with a 1-year warranty, so I guess that's only going to last me a year. Oh, I just bought this car with a 30,000-mile warranty, so I guess I better plan on buying a car in 30,000 miles. Or your SSD's warranty is called the TBW, terabytes written. It doesn't have to do with the lifespan of the SSD. It has to do with the warranty. Anyway, there's so much bad information online. There's more bad information regarding tech than there is accurate, good information. Oh, I miss you, Gordon Mah Ung. Because he and I were in the same battle together to battle all this gossip. And I'm going to do my part in the hopes that you will continue to spread that word when you see others gossiping about nonsense. I guess it entertains them to just make up stuff and scare people and have fear and anxiety that doesn't actually exist. So I guess if that's what they do for fun, please don't buy into it unless you also enjoy doing that for fun. What they're talking about is not real. It exists only in their head, and nobody's ever proven any of that. So I don't know what else to say. Show me proof. Well, let's talk from there. But yeah, plenty of people make videos and write stuff, and they have no business doing it. You know why? Because anybody can do it. You can write a book if you want to and publish it on Amazon. Technically, you're an author, but are you really? Maybe you got some hidden talent, I don't know. But technical information is factual or it's not. It's 1 or it's 0. It's on or it's off. There's no middle ground for interpretation here. So getting that information incorrectly from people who's then fueling it and propagating bad information online, and then those people fuel and propagate it online, and then I'm left here in a world of crazy going, what is going on in the world, you know? So you can help me win that battle or fight that battle by making sure facts are presented first and feelings are separated out separately when it comes to tech. Now, when I, back to the desktop, you see we've all got this automatic wallpaper thing that loaded, and that's a part of Microsoft. Yeah, it's like the Bing search engine or something. And if we come over here, we go full screen, and I'm going to just click OK here, and we'll check our device manager, and we should see no problems in the device manager because that auto driver updater should have filled everything in for us. And it did. Obviously, we're not going to be activated. However, we're in 4K now, which makes everything super tiny. So what I'm going to do is just go to personalize. We're going to take a corner of this and open it up a little bit so I can read it. And I want to adjust. Is it not under personalize? It's under display, maybe. I forget how to get there from here. Hold on. Let me right click again, and this time go to display settings. And right here where it shows our scale, I want the scale to be 250%. That to me is much easier legible from the distance I stand from the monitor. It almost looks like we're in 1080 now, right? And now we can go to Windows Update now that I can see what it actually says on the screen. Close that out. Oops, I didn't mean to activate it. Well, assuming everything passes all of its tests, we'll buy an activation key from SCD Keys. With a 30% off coupon, a Windows 10 Pro key is about $15 and change. And then we'll use that Windows 10 Pro product key, and we're going to enter it as a Windows 11 Pro product key. And that's going to activate as though we used a Windows 11 Pro product key, because Windows 10 offers a free upgrade into Windows 11 from Pro to Pro or from Home to Home. That's how I knew what version to install without the product key. It says if you don't have a product key, you got to tell it what version of Windows did you want to install. We got that list. So you could save a couple bucks getting home. In most cases, people aren't going to know the difference. But I build systems for customers with varying needs, from home users to businesses. It's a $3 price difference to go from Home to Pro. I might as well just spend the $3 so my support costs don't go through the roof as I'm trying to figure out what version of Windows did I sell this customer. So I just throw Pro on it anyway. But you guys probably don't need Pro, and it's probably a waste of money. And in many cases, it's probably better for you to have Home. But that being said, it's your money, spend it how you want. People are still confused over the benefits of Pro from the days of Windows XP and even Windows 7. There really are no benefits of Pro outside of being in an office or having to answer to a regulatory agency, which maybe you do, but you know, it's $3. We're going to turn all this on here, and here, and here, and we have some optional updates. We'll grab these as well. I don't even read them. I just grab them, slap them in there. Whoops, missed one. Advanced options, optional updates. One. Come on, one there. Sometimes I go too quick for my own good. I guess you weren't watching the checkboxes because I'm covering it up. It's the downside of having two cameras on at the same time. All right. Robert wants to know how Jimmy's doing. Jimmy's fantastic. Thank you for asking. He just got recently groomed. He smells good. Doesn't like the smell of an old dog. No, he smells good now, all nice and groomed. Let's see. Just looking if there's any other questions for us here in the chat. I try to keep these videos around 2 hours. We're an hour and 45 already into today's show. So with another 15 minutes, if you have comments or questions, this will be the time to ask as we're sitting here waiting for Windows updates. Oh, and I should adjust my power settings so the computer doesn't go to sleep on me while I'm talking to you guys. That's happened more than once. Just type edit. Power plan comes up. Enter. Yeah, there we go. I want that to be 3 hours is good. And never put the computer to sleep. It doesn't have batteries. Sleep mode is for batteries to be conserved. There's no other reason to use it. You can if you want to, but it doesn't make any sense. Okay, with that, let's see if there's any questions. Do I do any more giveaways? Well, unfortunately, the economics of YouTube have dissolved a lot of YouTube channels. 2024 has been a rough year, and the advertisers have gone away. And what's ended up happening is people using ad blockers, and they refuse to stop using them. It has resulted in us requiring memberships. And so for our members, we help them out as much as we can. And for our regular viewers, we're happy to continue to bring you the content because of our members. Financially, the money's barely there for us to keep operating, but we do hope you continue to enjoy the free content that's being brought to you by the members of the community, because without them, we wouldn't be here doing this now. Nothing was provided to us by any company here. We've purchased every component you see on the desk because of the contributions of people that want to see more. And we are able to make content or not make content based on how it's being paid for. So because of that, also the cost of shipping has gone up. The damage that's been occurring in shipping the last few times has been nearly 100% of what we ship gets damaged. So we just stopped. It's too much money. We can't afford it. And for the members who support us, we do special things for them. And we make sure that we always, we know we have viewers all over the world in various financial situations. So we always keep our videos for the first 12 months, they're available for free. And then if you want to go beyond 12 months, because we've been making videos since 2008, that's a benefit of membership. Reaching out to us for personal assistance or help or requests is a benefit of membership. As long as people are helping us, we're more motivated to help them in return. But overall, for the general world, consider these videos a gift of our community, because we don't have any traditional sponsorships here. We're not here making commercials. So that's where we're at in 2024. Now, if the advertisers come back in 2025, if other opportunities arise where giveaways are financially feasible, of course, we'll always look into that. The channel, I don't personally enrich myself from the channel. I just need to pay the bills to get the mortgage and the electrical bill and all the other stuff, food, so I can keep doing this. I don't have my Rolls Royce. Yes. What are you clapping about?
I'll tell you later.
All right. Well, with that, Lee in the chat says, Mr. Carey, does Windows 24H2 have issues for gaming? Well, if there are issues with gaming in 24H2, it's likely the cause of the game manufacturer. So the game manufacturer, like Ubisoft, they've created a lot of problems with Windows 24H2, where yes, there's a couple of things Microsoft could have done better. BIOS update on the Windows chip here on the Ultra improves the gaming performance a little bit, but mostly it's on the game manufacturer for not optimizing their game. It depends on the game, and it depends what your expectations of what acceptable playability is. No matter how well it plays the game, you're not going to be any better at playing it, though. You can buy a better camera. That doesn't make you a better photographer. You can buy better pots and pans, and that doesn't make you a better chef. So you can blame the CPU, or you can blame your video card or your NVIDIA drivers causing a 15% decline in their new interface versus the old GeForce interface, the GeForce experience. It's everything for the gamer to just blame everything except their own abilities. So if you're actually having an issue with a game and you want us to know, for example, if you want some help, we need to know which game it is, what version of the game you're running, what resolution you're playing it on, with what CPU, with what operating system, with what video card driver version, and then we can kind of suss down what do you think the problem is, because there may not be a problem. It may be running exactly like it's supposed to. What I can tell you is a skilled gamer, just like a skilled race car driver, can play the exact same game on the exact same computer, and the one who's the better gamer is the one who will win that game. The gamer who blames the hardware, I mean, unless the game's not running, at that point, it's between you and the game manufacturer. Just like when you buy anything else that doesn't work, contact their support or visit a support discussion forum like on Reddit to see what others have done to remedy the issue. But if the game is playing, and you're just trying to get a few more frames per second, it makes no sense to me, because professional tournament gamers, the ones who actually do it for a living, don't play with those settings. Professional gamers don't get to pick their own settings. They don't get to pick their own hardware. Professional gamers are sat down with the exact same hardware and try and look that hardware up. I challenge you. Look at what the standard hardware a gamer tournament uses. Chances are you won't find it, because if you're a good gamer, that doesn't matter. If you're truly skilled at the game, what you play it on is pretty much irrelevant. But if you're just there for the visuals, just watch TV. You don't have to play a video game to see great visuals. I'm watching Red 1, that movie on Amazon Prime with The Rock, and I wish I could see it at 75 frames per second. It's the same movie. I don't understand. So if there are any problems with Windows and the game manufacturer, the point is always going to be at the game manufacturer first and foremost, because nobody has to follow any rules. They can write a game any way they want to. They can write it sloppy, they can write it clean, they can make it all 10 times bigger than it needs to be, or they could slim it down and optimize it so it runs better. They can violate Microsoft's recommended tools for code writing because they're lazy or they think they know better, and then an update comes out and breaks it, and then people blame Windows. So welcome to the modern world. So there's a lot of variables involved, from your drivers, the version, the system, the CPU, the game settings. So in some cases, the answer to your question is yes. In some scenarios, the answer to your question is no. So I guess the answer is maybe, but probably on the game manufacturer for any issues. Just to clarify, this is what I liked about the video games of the 1980s. We went to an arcade. We put a quarter in the machine. We could not change the controller or the height. You couldn't be left-handed or right-handed. They didn't adjust to accommodate you. When you played a game in an arcade to achieve the high score, you played the same game at the same settings with the same controller at the same height with the same size screen as everybody else. And only the truly skilled people got high scores, not the person who spent more money to get fancier equipment. I miss those days, because back then it was experience that mattered, not money. But that's just me. That matters to me. And again, a professional gaming tournament, all play by those rules, by the way. If you're serious about gaming and you want to do that, like potentially make money, any sport, you don't get to use whatever baseball bat you want in baseball. There are rules, limits. You don't get to drive whatever you want in a race car. In a race, you have to follow all the weight limits and size of the fuel tank and all this other. Essentially, it comes down to the drivers. The cars are essentially equal, regardless of who makes them. And the better driver is the one that wins. Sometimes the better driver gets taken out of a race by a terrible driver. But that's not fair. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Now, who's up for a game of Galaga? Let's go. We'll see which one of us is better. Check how many frames per second my Galaga's getting. It's more like how many quarters per second you're going to have to put into it. I'll be on my quarter for a half an hour. Let's see. Classified says, hello, chat. All the best for holidays. Back at you. Thank you. Happy holidays to you. Mortot said, Defender was my game in the military. Literally and figuratively, I bet. Peter joins us from the Netherlands. Welcome in, Peter. Hey, there's our friend Mitch Morrison joining us in the chat. He's got a dad joke today. How do basketball players stay cool? They have lots of fans. Ba-dum-bum. Merry Christmas, everyone. Well, thank you, Mitch. Merry Christmas back to you, my friend. Mara agrees, Carey's Galaga is legendary. Do I have Galaga around here? Can I have a Galaga machine? I always keep a Galaga machine close by in case I get the withdrawal symptoms. I guess I should move camera 1 out of the top left and maybe move it to the lower right so I can see what the heck's going on. Apparently it's been waiting on a restart all this time and I haven't seen it. Oh no, it's still doing this install up here. We'll let that finish first. Where's my Galaga? What do I have? Well, you know what? That's not Galaga. I have this. It's a little dusty. An exact replica, 1/6 scale. Does the battery have a charge in it? Does not appear to have a charge. Aw. A bummer. Oh, wait a minute. It does have a charge. Let me try something. What if I take this out and plug it in back here? Will this work? Oh. No, that's not going to work. Let's go back over here. Plug that back in there. Think about this for a minute. Player 1. Do I have to insert a coin? There we go. Uh-oh. Is it a low battery light? Nope, I died. Darn it, I died again. It's hard to play backwards. I can do it. That's how skilled I am. Come on, I gotta put a coin in again. Coin. Play. Whoops, wasn't paying attention. Trying to figure out where the camera can see me. Oh, I died. I should have used my nuclear option. Anyway, these are fun games. And this is exactly the way it was in the arcade, just 6 times bigger. Artwork is exactly, everything is perfectly the same. The newer games do have HDMI outputs on them, so you can run them into big screen TVs and even external joysticks, so you can play them without having the little tiny controller and the little tiny screen. These are sold over at New Wave Toys, just a free shout out to them. And they make a lot of limited edition toys. You can't even find this one anymore unless somebody's scalping it on eBay. So you buy them, they're limited run, and then they don't make them. They did Dragon's Lair twice, which is pretty cool. But this is gaming. Sorry, but this is true gaming. This isn't about your FPS or your resolution or your controller, your joystick, your mouse. This is just about skill, and you either have it or you don't. It's not about the hardware. Now, when you go into arcades, some people were pretty hard on the machines, and that could result in a joystick that didn't quite work well. And yeah, in that case, it wasn't your fault. You know, if a controller wasn't working right, or a fire button wasn't firing every single time, that was a different story. Because again, it would work that way for everybody, not just you. See, even when I move the camera, it's still in the way of the restart button there. All right, there's our first round of updates. Everything's running swimmingly on this. It's really, really good. Let's see. Final questions. We're just about at the end of the show here. And of course, tomorrow, the big day. Hope you've got your Christmas shopping done. Or you just have cash. Thanks again, Dad. All right, let's see. Barry Klein said, I can personally attest to purchasing top-notch pots and pans, and it's definitely not making you a top-flight chef. Otherwise, I'd be the head chef at a Michelin 4-star restaurant. The cookware does look pretty. Yeah, so you'll see a lot of cooking place shows like Hell's Kitchen or Gordon Ramsay's. Anytime he's on TV, he's always using HexClad. Always. They're very expensive. And, you know, if HexClad wanted to give me pots and pans, I'd take them. I don't think Gordon Ramsay really gives a rat's behind what pots and pans he's using. He's not cleaning them. He's not paying for them either way. So I imagine that if some other pan manufacturer offered Gordon Ramsay the right offer, he doesn't really care what pots and pans. He's not going, gee, I think I want the HexClad. No, HexClad's going to write him a check and say, use our pots and pans exclusively, and we'll write you a big check. And he says, sounds good to me. What was he using before HexClad? So you're saying his food tastes better now than it did before? Well, it seemed like he got pretty good ratings before. Nobody asked him, hey, before I give you this Michelin star, what pots and pans do you use? It's like going to a photographer and going, that's a really nice photograph. What camera did you use? Yeah. Because it's the camera that did it all. Neg in the chat says Galaga's the best. Absolutely. Generation defining. Let's see. Let's continue this. Where's my mouse? I got full screen. One more time here so I can see what is happening. Full screen. Come on. Give me full screen. Full screen. There. Now I can see the mouse. Okay, we'll click continue. Skip. Not now. And back. And skip. Now we're done with that. It won't bother us anymore. One more time back over to Windows Update. Once again, I'm waiting on your questions. This is the time to ask. You going to have a good holiday? You expecting a nice, good Christmas? Have you already treated yourself to something? And if so, what did you get? Find any good deals on Black Friday? Yes, I'm going to plan on losing some weight, so I'm going to buy better spoons. Because that's how that works. Oh, the internet. Wow, that's restarting already? That didn't take long. Bortant said he got a new monitor. What'd you get? We did a lot of computer builds this year. Out of curiosity, to any of the builds we've done this year, or any of the mini PCs, or any of the laptops that we've shown, do any of those stand out to any of you guys? I'm just wondering if we did anything that was more memorable to you, or more meaningful, or more interesting to you. What was your favorite video we've done this year? None of them. Well, at least you're honest. Planet Kraus with a $5 super chat said, if I don't get to say this before tomorrow, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And of course, thanks to our friend Planet Kraus, who also has his own YouTube channel you should be checking out. He's got some fantastic and very recent content. He's been pretty busy over there making new content. Definitely worth watching. Show a little love, give a like and a thumbs up, a subscription, a subscribe. Not only to me, but to him too. They're free. Morton got a 49-inch Samsung Odyssey OLED G9. I was drooling over a 55-inch version of that. Then I realized, what do you do with it when it breaks? How do you get rid of a TV that big? I was thinking of using it here in studio because you can split this big curved monitor into screen 1 and screen 2, or even screen 1, 2, and 3. And I thought maybe I could have OBS on one screen and the chat room on a second screen. But I think it's so big my stand won't hold it. It might even hit the ceiling fan. And then when you split a 55, you get two 27s. The 227s are pretty small compared to what I'm using a 40 here now. So while I can get the screens, they might be too small for me to read. So for that reason, I did not pull the trigger on that purchase, but I've been coveting it. Because until I actually install it, I don't know if it'll work. The problem is if it doesn't work, I don't want to have to rebox it and send it back, or have to put it back in the car. I don't want to do any of that. And I don't have any place else in the house where I could use it, unfortunately. But it's a really nice screen. The 49-inch, the 55. It's like a windshield of a car. It's really big. Planet Cryos has a joke for us at $2 super chat. He says, do you know how to take a computer apart? The secret is you do it bit by bit. Ba-dum-bum. There we go. Oh, gosh, what did I ever do to you? Mortant said he looked at the 57-inch. Was it 57? I thought it was 55. But he said, yeah, that thing is just too big. Agreed. It's going to be a hassle to move it. And remember, I would have to hang that bad boy and turn it sideways for me to use it. Charlie Purdy says he likes the all-white build and the G7. So the G7 XT, the G7 Ti, or the G7 PT. Also, the white build, I think you're referring to the Leon Lee 011. I think a lot of people really like that build. It's still sitting right over there. I haven't done the cable management on it yet, but it's definitely one of my favorites. The struggle with the cooler was a little upsetting. So stupid. But, you know, we learned together. Now we know. It does look fantastic. It's very clean. 55 Staying Dude said he got himself a Sony A7 IV or 4 IV. That's a DSLR similar to what I brought out here. Full frame camera, I believe. And he says it's, oh, my first full frame camera, and I'm loving it. Yeah, that's why I bought mine, was I wanted a full frame camera. I don't know why, I just never had one. It looks exactly the same. So whatever it is, whatever the full frame function of it is, when I convert it out to video, it's not like it's really benefiting me. But I understand when you take pictures and you have the fuller frame, I guess it's better. Anyway, I wanted to experience myself with both a full frame, an APS-C, and a regular digital camera, which is not coming to mind. And I don't know that I've ever bought a 1/3, what do they call them? 2/3? I used to know all this stuff, but I've been so busy, it's been the last thing on my mind. The only reason I could turn that other camera on was I had to charge the batteries up to convert them into 4K output mode. And that was not easy. 4K video output mode. So I might as well use it while the battery's still charged. Al Perez with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Al. Frank Jimmy said, Santa already got me a Samsung 65-inch Q70D. It's a nice TV. With a soundbar and a subwoofer. The TV was $800 on a Black Friday deal, and quite the upgrade from his 20-year-old 40-inch Sony Bravia. I'll bet you it'll cost less money in electricity, too. The newer, bigger TV. And generate less heat in your room. Yeah. That sounds like a great TV. And a good price. was going to go back over to Windows Update one more time. I think we're caught up here. Updates. Settings. Update. Retry. This is normal. If it already previously installed this update and it tried to install it again, it crashes out or it errors out. And then it won't offer it anymore. It's self-healing and realizes you've already got this. It just didn't realize it at the time. But if you keep getting this over and over again, then that's a support call, or you can ask us for help. But just seeing it once and then checking again and it goes away, that's normal. Windows 10 started that sort of self-healing. Windows 11 has continued in that evolution, and that's why we don't get many Windows blue screen calls anymore. It's pretty rare these days. We get other problems, right? We don't deal with the mechanical hard drive failures anymore. Nobody's really using them anymore, and why should they? We don't see much in the way of power supply failures, and we don't see much in the way of blue screens, because Windows and drivers have gotten so much better. So in that way, the technology continues to evolve, and hopefully we as users continue to evolve with it, instead of continuing to do things the way we used to, in applying it to brand new technology that no longer benefits from that thought process or that maintenance process. So they're pretty well self-maintaining. If you leave them alone, you're good to go, typically. It's when you start tinkering with it that you can expect problems. And if you don't mind that, I mean, have fun. But if you don't want to have problems, just leave it at stock settings and you'll have a system like this is good for 10 years. 10 years before it'll still work, but it just maybe won't be compatible with whatever the security requirements or operating system requirements are to stay in a very, very hostile internet connected world. It's very hostile out there. Attacks, 7,000 attacks at Microsoft every second. Every second, 7,000 attacks. And these are bots, these are automated viruses that they just always run, and they keep adding more by the thousands every day. And your router and your antivirus and your Windows updates keep you blissfully unaware that it's happening. You have no idea that you're being attacked. And so a lot of people think they're not being attacked, and all the security stuff is overblown because, you know, ignorance is bliss. But they'll figure it out sooner or later. If they truly want to pursue that path, they'll find out that they were being protected, and when the protection goes away, you're going to wish you had it when it's too late. I never use car insurance. Why should I carry it on my car? Kind of that line of thinking. But to each their own. Ain't you, mama? Do what you're going to do. But boy, I feel bad for people that want to learn that the hard way. It can be very expensive and take 2 to 3 years to correct an identity theft. Very difficult to prove you are who you say you are when the other person is saying the same thing. Who do you believe? Where's your evidence? You got to go to court. You got to pay for lawyers. It's a mess. You go, well, I probably shouldn't have done that one thing and took 2 seconds that ruined my life for the next 3 years. But if you want to, don't let me get in your way. Black Carbon Dragons and Carey, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you. You too. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to you as well, my friend. Frank Jimmy says he's watching the live stream on a brand new Samsung TV right now. It's like Carey is standing in my very own living room. Yeah, please don't call the police. Probably on that size TV, I'm life size. John Paul Bacon said the more expandable a mini PC was, the more likely I might be interested in getting it. The expansion is kind of unnecessary anymore. When we were building machines and everything was evolving so quickly, it was really important to be able to upgrade. But now, when we can build things in, they're faster, cheaper, and more reliable. The built-in RAM, built-in storage. Well, storage usually isn't faster, but it's cheaper when you can just solder it on. Apple's been doing this on their M1 through M4 chips. It's just that the ARM chips need the software coded for them to run optimally. And as long as the ARM has to translate Windows and programs from x86, it's going to slow it down. Whereas Apple is a software company, they're not a hardware company. In order to sell Apple software, they need the hardware that the software can run on. So Apple's forced to make hardware, even though they're not really a hardware company, they're a software company. So they can rewrite all their code to ARM or whatever processor they want because that's their business. Microsoft is a little more challenging. It's not as simple as that. But the idea is that we're getting so much RAM, so much storage, we're able to get it so much faster and so much cheaper, and it's already so much more than most people would ever use, at least in the lifespan of that computer's estimated life, that it no longer makes sense to add the money for sockets. It no longer makes sense to invite a customer into that machine to potentially break it. It no longer makes sense to add unnecessary cost and points of failure to something that will potentially be, in all likelihood, when systems start having failures, it's usually where a connection is. If that connection is a soldered down connection, it's a very good connection. If the connection requires a socket and then you have to socket a chip into it, you have to pay for the socket. The socket itself slows everything down, in particular memory. And so you can't use the memory as fast. So all of these old school reasonings by, why we used to do all this, until something happens with technology, for the most part, most of us watching this video are using or have more than we ever use. Most of us. I mean, outside of benchmarks and testing, that's probably the hardest most of you ever push your system, is in testing it, not in actually using it. Now, that is a general statement, and some of you, obviously, that doesn't apply to, but you know who you are. So therefore, you don't need to hear this from me. But we're not, the manufacturers, I say we, but the manufacturers of PCs aren't selling to the enthusiasts. They're selling to the general public. And the general public wants as much as they can get for as little as possible. And one way to achieve that is by soldering things down, reducing the cost, improving the performance, and removing the burden of should I or shouldn't I decision making of should I upgrade more RAM, should I upgrade more SSD, which one should I buy, will it overheat? All that goes away. All the support calls go away. Not all of them, but anything related to an upgrade goes away. That reduces the company's expenses since support is a cost center. And as you can see, as we march forward, there's no more headphone jacks on these phones. We've got wireless charging. The cameras in the phones are going to surpass handheld cameras. Those will go the way of the dodo bird. The pocket digital cameras are gone. I don't know if you realize that, but nobody makes those anymore. You've got one Blu-ray drive maker left. That's Panasonic. Everybody else stopped making Blu-ray drives. That's going away. And nobody really upgrades their phones anymore. There's no expansion in these new phones. There used to be. And maybe there's still some models out there where you can add expansion, but they've already got. This phone has, I think, 256 gigs of built-in storage. And I have loaded it with pictures and movies and programs. I'm going to use 196 after nearly a year. I think I've had this since February or March. Can't really change the battery in it. And why would I want to when the new phone's coming out that's even faster with a better battery life and better cameras and faster processor? Potentially more RAM, more storage, of which I'm not even using what I have anyway. So it's just those extreme users. And even then, you just pull it off onto the cloud and free your RAM up anyway. So this idea of needing to keep everything right here, this is all my stuff right here. With the expansion of the internet and cloud storage and faster internet connections, this is becoming less and less important, anything other than basically a thin client for the most part. And again, with some exceptions. But for the average consumer out there, we're reaching that point. That's why the Microsoft Link 365 is a thing. I don't recommend it. It's overpriced. But that's where we're moving towards. So I'm just suggesting buckle in. Because if you want to stay back there, we're all moving that way pretty quickly, and you'll just get left behind. So just bear that in mind as we watch new PCs coming out, mini PCs. They will be less and less expandable because it's no longer necessary until and if that ever changes. But it doesn't look like it's going to. Usually, in my experience, as society moves on, we very rarely move back. Once we let go of VHS, we never went back, right? And so once we let go of the whole RAM and storage thing, because at some point it's just doesn't make sense anymore, there'll always be a few niche products out there, you know, for the enthusiasts, but the overall marketplace won't be doing that anymore. Customers aren't using it. Your average customer does not upgrade RAM or storage ever in the lifetime of their computer. The computer I showed you recently that I upgraded, that I built 10 years ago, that customer never so much as took the panel off of it to dust it. These are the people that are buying the bulk of computers, not the enthusiasts like you and I. And they're built to appeal to the common person. So for that reason, the only way the enthusiasts will likely be happy with the system is if they build it themselves. Sad to say, but that's pretty much, we're almost there today. Give it another year or two, and then your choices for building will be fewer, because there won't be as much money to be made in it. People will just say, why would I spend that one? I mean, even now, people are just using their phones. They're just getting rid of the PC altogether. Why do I need that when I have this? These are so fast right now. These are faster by far the computers I owned 10 years ago. And I have it in my pocket with me at all times. Always connected to the internet. I don't have to come home to check my email. I can check it wherever I am. Why would you go backwards? So that's the direction we're heading, sadly. So I wouldn't expect much in that way moving forward. Maybe one or two more models, you know, say for minis for them. And after that, I think we're pretty much looking at everything being locked down. So we can get those prices down. They'll be far more affordable, far more powerful, and far less need to upgrade it to begin with. But I could be wrong. It's just my prediction. Let's see. Just looking back in the chat. Frank Jimmy said, I'd usually watch live streams on the YouTube app on a PS4. That way he can chat. On a Samsung TV, you can't really chat. Kind of hard to have to use the Samsung remote to AND space. Yeah, that would be kind of painful. They usually have Bluetooth keyboards that can work with those, but I don't know if the latest YouTube app on a Samsung TV would accommodate for live chat using like a Bluetooth keyboard. Should be possible. Never tried it. Older TV, not so much, but the new ones, I don't know. 3D Everything with a $5 super chat says, Merry Christmas to Carey and Mara. Well, thank you, 3D Everything, and Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you, my friend. Thank you for your super chat and your holiday wishes. Okay, and I think we're all done here on these updates, right? We're not getting that error message anymore. We'll check for updates one more time. It should come up as no more updates. And that pretty much makes this machine, or this motherboard, all prepped and ready for install. I suppose one last test is, let's see how fast our T500 is. T500 should be giving us around 12,400 megabytes per second. Or nearly twice that of Gen 4. So we're on a Gen 5 drive right there. I've got Crystal Disk Mark on this flash drive. Let me plug that in. And let me go full screen on camera. What do we call this? Camera 2. Full screen right there. We'll close this. And we'll go down to this yellow folder. And let's see, what do I want off my USB drive? VLC, because I will put that on here. And I want, what else? Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer. I will apply my Windows 11 24H2 network fixes so we can see the shares without errors, since those security updates now require SMB signing and there's no more guest fallback. I like to reverse that. And then what else? Crystal Disk Mark and CPU Z. Now, I'm not going to worry about any sort of heat testing because I don't intend to keep the cooler on here, and I don't want to stress the CPU with this cooler on there. I don't know enough about it yet to confidently try that out. But let's run Dismark 64, and let's see what kind of numbers we're getting out of this crucial T700. Now, there is a T705, which costs more and gives it a little bit faster. Might add up to entire milliseconds of your life. So, you know, worth it. And yeah, 12,357. I think the box said 12,400. That's pretty close to what the box says. That's just stupid fast. I mean, that's faster by about 10 times, at least faster than a human being can process the data. That's how much faster it is than a human's capabilities. That being said, you could have some intensive intensive project where those milliseconds add up and can make a very big difference in your processing time, but probably not. I'm sure there's some of you that have that. You don't need to tell me, I believe you, but most of you don't. You just like the benchmark and you like the number. Hey, it's great. If 3 milliseconds loading Word matters to you, spend your money, have it. We put these on here for demonstration and to explain where the benefits are, what the cost is, and what the return is. There's definitely no value in a Gen 5 drive in 2024. That's all about performance. And whether that performance is for bragging rights simply because you can afford it and you want it, or you actually have a need for it, it's not for me to decide. It's your money. I'm not your mama. I wouldn't buy it. I would not spend my hard-earned money on a Gen 5 drive in 2024. Gen 4 is super, super fast, much, much better value for what you get. And eventually those Gen 5 drives will come down in price, likely when the Gen 6 comes out. And guess what I'm going to say then? All right. I think that'll wrap it up for us for today. And I really appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out with us today or in the chat room and joining us for our this is our second Ultra 7 265K build. We have an Ultra 5 245K build coming up and a Ryzen 5 build coming up into the new year. I don't expect we'll get to that before the end of this year. And we may have a special broadcast for you tomorrow, just for fun. We'll see. We're certainly thinking about it. And, you know, if you don't want to watch football, maybe we'll give you an alternative. In the meantime, I want to thank all of our very generous contributors during today's broadcast. That includes our friend Buster. And of course, in the super chat, 3D Everything, Al Perez, Peter VZ, Planet Cryos, a couple of times from Planet Cryos, Al Perez and Jose Lopez, 4 times from Planet Cryos, Charlie Purdy, Pavlos, who became a member today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Raj D. I want to thank Oystein, Frankie B, Paul Gray, Rob Foster, Tom Jackson. Mark Gaines has been an amazing supporter. I keep failing to mention his name. I hope he doesn't take that personally. It's just, I got to create new habits, you know. Also, all the regular viewers, all of our members in green, so many of you have been with us now over 30 months, which just blows my mind. And I want to remind everybody who watches for free, the only reason these videos are free is because of all the members you see in green in the super chats. They're the ones paying for it. They're the sponsor. Good luck ad blocking them. It's because of them that we could buy these parts we want to buy. We can review these parts. They're parts we want to review. And we can say whatever we want about these parts. Nobody controls us. There's no corporate entity that we have to answer to or be punished by. And it's with that financial freedom of our members that enables these videos to be possible. And their generosity. Look, I thought 2024 was going to be a rough year financially because of what was happening with YouTube ad revenues. And our viewers came through for us. Now, granted, we didn't have so much money that we built, you know, excessive big beast machines, but we built a lot more than I was planning on. The generosity was outstanding. And because of that, we had so many more builds. I thought we'd do a build about once every 3 months. And yet, if you look at what happened this year, that all changed because if the viewers were generous and contributed, I spent that money on the channel. And that's why you saw so much more content, especially builds. These are very, you know how much money's on the table right here? You can add it up. All the parts for today's build are in the video notes below this video, along with discounts for Windows and Office license keys with a 30% off code to save you some money. Guaranteed, their support is 6 months long. I always tell you 30 days, but they really give you 6 months, okay? But I'm just not encouraging you to go that long. Our friends at RoboForm and at Acronis, we just really appreciate the freedom they give us to not interfere with our content, to not try and control it, and to offer all of our viewers a discount all year round, not just during a special time. But there are special times where there's even a better discount. I think Acronis is back to 50% off last I checked. Let me just look one quick time here before we say goodbye. If I go to Acronis, are they running that 50% off again? I probably have to go to Acronis and not Acorns. Let's try that again. Acronis for home. Yeah. So if I go to acronis.com, you don't have to use any coupon code or anything from us. I'm just trying to save you some money here. Window capture mode, right? Right there should be it. Yeah, it says here. What happened to my mouse? Oh, I'm over here. For home, save up to 50%. Free trial. You do not have to provide a credit card or anything. If we say buy now, where's the 50%? Oh, on the premium is 50%, I see. And the advanced is 30 and the essentials is 20. So you'll still save more using our coupon code. You'll save 30% across the board, which means if you're buying essentials, you'll save more. If you're buying advanced, it's the same. And if you're buying premium, you're better with their deal at Acronis. But these are temporary deals. And then we'll look forward to working more with Acronis in the 2025 in the coming year. And we'll talk more about the year-end stuff next week. It's holiday time. Once again, you know, our thoughts with Gordon Mah Ung. What a loss to the IT community. We definitely need more journalists in tech that had Gordon's he had a way of translating things into plain English and common sense, while at the same time fully understanding the tech. He understood it. A lot of journalists don't really understand it. They just parrot out what they read and put it in their own words. If you've never seen any of Gordon's rants, they are both true and hilarious, and he's going to be missed dearly, dearly in this industry. So our thoughts in with his family at this time, and what a great guy, super guy. When I grow up, I want to be like Gordon. All right. Listen, I don't want it to be on a sad note here. He was a great guy, and the world is better off, the tech world, for his involvement. So we'll leave it on a positive note. Tomorrow, big, big day. I hope you're looking forward to it. You should be. And yeah, I think Mara and I might just have a little goofy video we'll do tomorrow. Maybe. It should be a great day. You should not have a bad Christmas. All right? That's just, I don't even care what religion you are. That just should be a good day, even if it's just a day of peace and quiet and no stress. Yes, I'll take that. Thank you. And hopefully you'll spend it with loved ones and family. And whoops, let me get back over here to camera 1 for a second. Right click, full screen. No, wrong way. Control F. There I am. All right, guys. Thank you again for watching. Thanks for all your membership, your support, your kindness. This community is just the most amazing. The biggest community of this level of like-minded, kind individuals I'm not aware of exists anywhere on the internet at this scale. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of it. And sincerely, really do hope you have a great Christmas day. Hopefully, we'll be able to make a little goofy video tomorrow, and you can hang out with us if you've got nothing else better to do. And if you're busy, you're not missing anything. We're just, if we do it, it'll just be silly. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Mara, of course. She's there working tirelessly in the background, updating video notes, working with potential reviews from products they want us to review. Most of the time telling them thanks but no thanks, as well as answering your emails and your questions or any concerns you have through the show's email, which we showed on the screen earlier and is also in our video notes below the video. That'll wrap it up for me for today. I will see you all again, ideally tomorrow. Have a very Merry Christmas. Until next time, bye for now.